do you find yourself being forced to be alone? As in, you don't have as much chance to hang out with the people you used to hang out with, or even you don't have as much chance to indulge in activities that you used to cope with, activities that provide this high, the rushes of dopamine or pleasure. Or even maybe you just don't find it as appealing to hang out with your friends, or you don't find it as appealing to do such activities or indulge in such pleasurable activities to cope. Or even maybe you just have a calling within you to experience activities, to indulge in activities that are going to make you enjoy your time alone, that are going to show you the value in being alone, like meditation, like reading, like just going out and walking in nature, or just out of a sudden you get that calling, you want to just exercise and focus on your health, your body health, and your food. So you find yourself being distanced from your friends. Maybe when you come together, you share some bad habits, and now you just feel that calling that you have to do things differently. Well, the good thing is that being alone or being in that situation is a very good indicator that your life is about to change. It's a very good indicator that you are shifting realities, or even that your spiritual awakening is actually taking a more serious stance. And there are two main reasons for that. The first reason being is that you have to let go in order to let new things to come into your life. In other words, you need to clear up space for other things to come into your life. If you have more than you can digest on your plate, you won't have space for other things to come into your life, energetically, physiologically, mentally. And I'm going to go more into detail about this in just a bit. And there's a second aspect to this same first reason, and that is maybe you're going somewhere that you can't carry along whatever you've been holding on to, that you need to let go of this, the same thing, same opening space, you need to let go. But this time is because those people or those things that you're doing are not aligned with where you're actually going. Maybe it's absolutely normal. You could ask anyone you know, or go online and see any of the gurus or enlightened people, or those anyone who've had a spiritual awakening. It's a very common thing to go through loss of attachment to people, to things, to material things, to activities, to experiences. It's very normal to let go, and the first image that letting go takes is of people, because people can drag you down. People could be the best distraction you have, and as long as you're distracted and as long as you're aligned with that same frequency, because when you come together you all share this a very similar frequency, you match each other levels because you want to be suitable. And if you keep going through that, then you are prolonging your journey towards where you want to go. So if your calling is actually, if you're calling to shift your life, if you're calling to go through that change, to pursue that different reality, that thing, that dream you have been dreaming of for a long time, stronger than actually your attachment to your current reality, then you're gonna find yourself being forced to be alone through different situations. And that brings me to the next reason why being alone is actually a very good indicator, is because you are opening space for source to connect with you. When you become alone, it's one of the best experiences. When you really enjoy being alone, you truly see the value in being alone, and then it becomes one of the best things for you to experience, because you truly know yourself when you're alone. As long as you're just coping, as long as you're just distracted by being around people, by just always continuing, whenever you felt any emotions coming up or anything from your subconscious starting to become conscious, and it doesn't feel as comfortable as you're used to. It's not something that you're used to. Whenever you're shifting realities, whenever your life is changing, it's not something that you're familiar with, and this brings out uncomfort. And then you just go and hang out with friends aimlessly, then you are really not letting the infinite to flow through you. You're not opening yourself to receiving this energy, to channel this energy from what's beyond, from our greater connections, our greater source of life, from God, from your higher self. And so this is why it's a very good reason, it's a very good indicator that your spiritual awakening is taking a serious stance, because your infinite self, your higher self, is trying to contact you. Is trying to get into your life and align yourself itself more with you. Hello, you lovely infinite beings, right onto your path of exploring the infinite. Thank you for tuning into another video of AF's conscious frequency. Now, before going into details about the two reasons of why it's a good indicator, I'd just like to clarify what I truly mean by being alone, because being alone is not necessarily just the absence of people from your life. It could be it's also the absence of mechanisms you use to cope with the absence of people from your life. So maybe if if you feel, whenever you feel alone, you just, go and binge watch, or you play video games, or you go out and just drink, or you just keep drinking until you forget, or you just, you use a mechanism to cope with your being alone, then in turn being alone won't have the value it should have. So this is also still not being alone, but in essence, being alone is actually the absence of familiarity. At least to me, that's the way I see it, and I believe that's what truly being alone is: having the absence of any sort of familiarity. And that really what opens you up, that really what makes you clear space for new things to come into your life, that what opens you up to new experiences, to new life, and to your source getting in contact with you, to your higher self getting in contact with you and channeling that divine energy through you. For example, I've long since I've been attracted by solo traveling. I suddenly found myself wanting to travel solo. And trust me, after that first time I took my solo trip, my life completely changed, and my perspective completely changed, and I changed as a person, just for one trip, just because of one trip, just in 1 week. And the reason is because traveling alone, so maybe you've even felt it, maybe you've suddenly felt that you want to travel alone, that you're being called to go on that solo trip, to take that solo trip, although your friends might be around you and they're willing to travel with you, because I was in that situation. But I find, it was when I was first starting to change, and not even, I haven't had changed that much, but I've changed. And I thought maybe because I'm not that interested in my friends anymore, because I'm changed and I went through lots of changes. But in actuality, I was actually interested in them. I liked them, and they were also going through their own kind of changes. So we had that matching energy, but still I felt the calling of traveling alone. And what I realized after I took that first solo trip, is that traveling alone is not just the absence of people, like I was just saying. It's the absence of everything. It's the absence of any sort of familiarity. It's the absence of cultural ties. It's the absence of traditions. It's the absence of knowing. It's the absence of the known in general. It's the absence of, your language, your used places, your, everything, whatever is going, the absence of the normal routine, not your own routine, even the country routine, the community, the collective routine. Everything is different. You go to a different country or a different city, and suddenly everything is different, and you're even alone. So if you go to a new country, traveling even with friends has its benefits, of course, regardless of whether you're alone or with friends. But when you're with friends, you can pretty much expect what's going to happen. It's easier for you to expect, you know how it's going to go, because regardless of how things are, you have your own group, you have your shared focus. Okay, we're gonna do these kind of things, and we know what we're doing when we're together. We either find, ways to have fun, we play games, we can go sightseeing, we can go out drinking, you could do many, visit different places, but you're always with that familiarity. You're still sharing those inner jokes, you're still sharing this inner dialogue, you're still on the same frequency, you're not as open when you're alone. In comparison, when you're alone, you're just open to receiving the whole experience as it is, with all the differences, with all the irregularities, with all the unfamiliarities. And you're even open, just think about this one example, you're open to experiencing, to connecting with other people. And that's also another point. So it's also vice versa. Being alone doesn't even necessarily mean that you don't connect with anyone, that you don't meet up with anyone. Because if you meet with a stranger, and you could even spend the day with them, and you're still alone, because in originality you're alone. With a stranger, it's not, there's no sense of familiarity, so your attachments are not triggered, your obsession with how things are is not triggered, and that's why it's still not considered being, not being alone. And so you're even open to meeting up new people, and who knows what kind of things you might learn and share with these people, and all around, over all the way around the world, in different countries and different cities, with different mentalities, with different traditions. And the sense of freedom when you're traveling solo in a new country, in a new city, is completely shifts who you are, because you realize that you have been really burdening yourself for all of those years. You've been unnecessarily attached to things that are not part of your identity, and that now that you're there, without all of these attachments of traditions, cultures, and everything, you don't have attachment to any sort of identity. You're just purely you. You're just purely being. You're as close as possible with who you truly are when you're alone and in a different country, in a whole different setting. You're just, and this becomes even more evident when you're sitting and you're watching people, all of the same culture, with the collective culture and the collective mentality going around. Maybe they have a shared tradition that they do, and you see everyone doing it and rushing at that specific time to do that kind of thing, and you're just going the opposite direction with no sense of attachment to that kind of thing. And this really brings with a new understanding, a new sense of freedom. And that's the beauty of really the absence of familiarity, of being alone, in other words. And so moving on to the first reason, which is clearing up space, just like with anything, and this works on a material level and even on an energetic level. Because clearing up space, imagine that you are obsessed with hoarding, material around your house, whether it's furniture, appliances, even luxury items, clothes, whatever. And then you're feeling sad, or you're just feeling bad because there's that one thing that you truly want, but you cannot afford it, or you can't buy it for whatever reason. There's this rejection, there's this resistance, and it's not coming into your life. You're not able to bring it into your life. But on the other side, you're just getting too many meaningless things in your life, and you're wondering why. And the reason is that you have more on your plate than you can digest. You're just not giving it space. And even the same energetically, if your energy, if it's just open to receiving everything and everyone, and you don't have boundaries, you're not conservative with your energy, you're not careful what you expend your energy in. Your energy has one form, your energy is one, and you can give it whatever form you like. So just remember the last time maybe you felt energized and motivated to do one thing, But then because you were excited, because now you could do this one thing that you were waiting on for so long and you wanted to do for so long, now you're excited and you're motivated and you suddenly felt that surge of energy. So you decide to actually, because you're that excited, you decide to actually expend that energy in different things. Like now, for example, you're suddenly in the mood to connect with other people, with your friends, or now you're in the mood to go and watch that series you've been missing out on. Because now you're excited, you're motivated, you can see your vision clearly, you got that surge of energy, you got that intuition that was delivered to you, that was channeled through you, through your higher self. But then you chose to go and do something else that gave you that pleasure. And when you came back to your original calling, you don't find yourself as motivated, you don't find yourself as, passionate or driven. Now it's, you're just gonna have to force your way through it, because you're gonna feel guilty and you're gonna feel that you missed out and that you wasted your time, you wasted your energy, because energy is essentially one, and you chose to give it that form. Now it depends how much energy you have, depends on how connected you are to what's beyond, to who you truly are, to truth, to oneness, to the collective source of energy. And so if that's what happens, and it has happened to me many times before, because when you get that driven, it came from what's beyond. If you're suddenly not feeling like doing, if you're not feeling like doing something, and then suddenly you felt like doing that thing, then just do it. When is the best time to do anything, to pursue your dreams, to pursue that thing it's when you feel like it. So when you feel like it, when you have the energy to do it, just do it. The first thing, before getting excited and just daydreaming about it, and then go and wasting your energy in something else, thinking that you're going to come back to it, and then you'll be excited. And the other aspect to it is that you even had your hormonal needs, and that's even your space is filled, because you got that surge of energy, because you had that drive within you, you had that thirst in a sense, and then you used something else to quench that thirst, you used something else to get that dopamine. When you had that thirst, when you were really building that momentum within, not necessarily even before taking any sort of action, you're just building momentum by feeling, by thinking, and you want to do something, and you want to do that kind of thing. And so your higher self sees this and sees an opportunity, and sees that you're committed and devoted, and it channels that surge of energy through you. It inspires you. And so there's two aspects to it. It's the neurological aspect, the physiological, which is your need for that more hormonal balance, and it's also your energy, it's also your energetic vibrational energy. And so when you went and filled your hormonal balance using something else, when you got that dopamine from something else, rather than working on your passion and feeling the drive and feeling purpose and feeling that you're moving forward with what you want in life, and that in return gives you dopamine, not as instant and high as what you would have done in exchange to get that pleasure, to what you used to waste your energy on. And so that's the point. That's why it's because you're opening the space for something else to enter into your life. And the second aspect to it is that many people could not be aligned with where you are going. Many things you're doing could not be aligned with where you're trying to reach. And so if your desire to get to that place, to be that person, is stronger than what your attachment to where you actually are at the present, then you are going to force a situation where you part ways with these kind of activities or these kind of people. And if you resist, if you struggle against it, if you keep holding on, yet you are the one who originally called upon this to happen, then you are going to create a situation where you're forced to, and it might even be bad. I speak about this very clearly in one of my previous videos, and it was something like, does spiritual awakening has to be lonely? Go and watch that one. I really spoke about this aspect in that one. It's a long video, and it has lots of details in it. And so you're not many so and so you have to let go of some things in order to move on with your life, in order to get something else, in order to align your, because you're aligned with something else, and when you shift your alignment you have to let go of some things, but you struggle and hold on to it, and then it's like a tug of war, and then you prolong the journey, and then you prolong the experience, and you prolong the test, and you're going against what you truly are manifesting from within. And then you might create this thing that traumatizes you into letting go, or triggers you in some sort of way, and then becomes all this whole dramatic experience. And I mean, it's natural because it's not easy, especially when you're first starting, and you're not maybe, or unless you're very very disciplined, and or you've been through this a few times before, then that's the way it goes for the vast majority of people. Now, moving on to the second reason is that when you're alone, the ego is not as active any longer, because you're not feeding the ego with what it wants. You're not feeding your identity. You're not relating. You're not attaching yourself to those things you used to do, or to these people you used to hang out with. And now your ego is sleeping in a sense. It's less and less active. It gets less and less active. And the more you stay alone, and the more you do different things that don't feel familiar, like for example, if you're not used to going out in nature and going on a walk or exercising in nature, and you start doing, the ego is less and less familiar. Now the ego feels antagonized, and it just, you're taking back control. You as the true you, the higher connected you, is taking back control from the ego, and now you're becoming more and more aligned with something else, with someone, with a different you're having a different frequency, and now you're being open more for your higher self to enter, because the more detached you are from the ego, it means the more attached you are to your source, to your higher self. And this gives it a very good chance. It's the best thing for your higher self to get in contact with you, for your source to channel its energy through you. It's when you're alone. It's when you're in familiarity. And that's really why I love solo traveling, because it really gets me to that space, especially if I do it intentionally, especially if it's it's one of my intentions, and it's a conscious act that I'm using solo traveling as a mindful experience, and meditating, and just, opening myself to life more. Because I know when, even even if you're unawarely doing it, but when you're in your familiar zone, you're not seeking anything. You're just, although it might not be intentional or conscious, but your body does it, your subconscious does it. It stops seeking, it stops asking, it stops, not completely, but to a much less extent than when you're in a completely unfamiliar environment. And that's why it's much easier for your higher self to get in contact, to connect with you, to align you, to lead you towards what's going to align you with where you're trying to get easier. And that's all for today. Thank you for tuning in to another video.